That's impressive.
Well,
okay.
Let's do this.
All right.
Okay. Hi, this is Beth.
And I'm Stainy.
And you're listening to Mixed Politics.
Yeah.
Welcome to episode 15.
16.
16?
Yeah.
Is it 16?
It is.
Damn.
I know.
See, this is what happens when I don't update my notes.
Wow. We are 4 away from not being teenagers anymore.
Oh, that's so special.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm excited. So
Stainy, what are you drinking tonight?
I am drinking Ray and Nephew Overproof Rum. I know. You already know because you're here.
And I've been drinking with you. Sorry, go on.
We might be a little bit fucked up. Ray and Nephew White Overproof Rum, a Jamaican staple, and Coca-Cola, and a dash of some, is it lime or lemon? Lime juice.
Lime juice.
And it's awesome. It's the same rum that we had at the party a couple of weeks ago, and it was lovely. So I just figured, let's go again. I'm in your shot.
Yeah.
Oh, my shoulder's in your shot. This is hilarious. On too many levels.
I think we should. I don't know.
No, I'm fine with it. It's cool. So, what are you drinking?
Well, I am drinking the same rum because we are in the same room, but with a Zevia instead of Coke. So, yes.
Too much sugar in the Coke for you.
Right. Way too much sugar. It put me in a coma. So, that brings us to the highlight of this is that we are in the same room for the first time ever on this podcast.
Yeah.
Yes. What's up, man?
This is so
we
awesome.
don't even know how to act in person.
I know. We're just getting drunk together.
Yeah.
And I hope it works out for you guys because it's going to work out for me. I'm for free.
We'll see where this goes.
Yeah. Hopefully in subsequent episodes we'll have a broader view of just the two of us, and we're not split screen anymore. But as you can see, we're in the same spot, and it is what it's
amazing.
All right,
it's amazing.
So, what are we talking about this week?
We're talking about what's going on with the January 6th commission.
The commission.
Yes, it's a special commission that is trying to investigate what happened on January 6th, what led to it, who participated, all that kind of stuff.
You know what the funny thing about this whole commission thing about, you know what's so annoying?
What?
I keep saying the funny thing because it's funny to me. I don't know if it's funny to other people.
It's not funny, haha. It's just funny,
right.
Puzzling.
I need to find another thing to say besides the funny thing. You know what's interesting? You know what's interesting about the whole January 6th commission thing and trying to figure out what happened and who did it and what happened or whatever.
Yeah.
We all watched it live.
I know.
On TV. So it's like, what the fuck are we talking about? Just play the tape.
I know. It's insane to me.
Like what?
That on that day I was talking with people live when it was happening.
Mm-hmm.
I was sending instant messages to my coworkers saying, "Are you watching what's going on?" And universally, so I work with a lot of people of all political persuasions, and that's just the way I like it. I like to be friends with a lot of different people, very diverse. So obviously I'm friends with Trump supporters. And oh my God, they were horrified that day. Yes, I am. You may not be, but I am. They were horrified that day. They were telling me how awful it was. And then I was just like, wow, finally they're starting to understand how I felt about
why the rest of us is scared to death of fucking Hitler 2.0.
Right. But in the time since then, most of them have changed their tune. Mm-hmm. This is what happens when you have a media that's so focused on manipulation for clicks and views that they were horrified that day. We were all horrified that day. And since then it's like, oh, but, and I'm like, there's no but. That was an awful day. Yeah. And there should be a commission to research this because we need to really hold people accountable.
We need some accountability.
Yes.
Whatever.
Yes.
But this is where we are. Oh, God.
And how we got to this spot really started back at the second impeachment because the second impeachment of Donald Trump was about January 6th because so many people saw there was a direct correlation between the words that he was saying, the events that happened at the rally that day, and then people marching into the Capitol and destroying property, smearing shit on the walls, looking for Mike Pence, trying to hang him, and basically hunting down and trying to kill members of Congress.
And people died immediately
People
as a
died.
result of them entering the fucking Capitol building.
Yes. So back during the second impeachment, the Democratic Party really wanted to hold Donald Trump accountable for this, saying his words led to those actions. And Mitch McConnell, the minority leader in the Senate, said Donald Trump is responsible. Actually, I went back and looked at his speech, and I wanted to give some quotes because what he said that day is directly related to the January 6th commission.
Yeah.
Mitch McConnell, pretty much the leader of the Republican Party, said citizens' actions were disgraceful and they had been fed falsehoods by Donald Trump himself, and his actions preceded a riot. The House accused Trump of inciting the riot, and Trump, according to McConnell, was, and I quote, practically and morally responsible for the events of that day, no question about it.
I remember those words.
Yes.
No question about it. And
Those
I was like,
words,
this guy? Fucking turtle?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
The man that had basically bent over backwards to do everything Trump wanted. So then he went on to say that Trump was, quote, determined to either overturn the voters' decision or else torch our institutions on the way out, end quote. So he gave a very long speech talking about how Trump was directly responsible for this. But he said the reason he voted against impeachment was because impeachment was never meant to be the final form for American justice. But President Trump is still liable for everything he did while he was in office. Mm-hmm. We have a criminal justice and a civil litigation process to hold Trump accountable, was what he said. Civil litigation includes something like a commission to research what happened, to litigate the details of the day, to bring parties together to discuss what happened, who was involved. That is the civil litigation that he was talking about. So Mitch McConnell was saying, impeachment is not how you hold Donald Trump accountable. You do something like a commission or an investigation to hold him accountable. So that's what he said.
No, so I wanna stop you there because I agree with what he said.
Sure.
You agree with what he said.
Sure.
And then fast forward to when the House was trying to put together this commission.
Yes.
He then disagreed with what he said.
Exactly. He completely flipped, and most of the GOP did as well, which was why I wanted to bring up Mitch McConnell's words to say, this is what he said we should have done.
Yeah.
Now he's saying we shouldn't do it because it's too partisan.
Oh, God. My head
So
hurts
clearly he's politically motivated because he knows that this is going to unveil a lot of the underbelly of the Republican Party. Now, the Democratic Party is not completely innocent. I'm not saying this to be a champion for Democrats.
Wait.
No.
Not completely innocent in the insurrection?
No. Just in general.
Okay.
Their hands aren't clean when it comes to pointing the finger at people and saying that they're morally superior. You know, neither party is complete. I don't want to get into the whataboutism. Oh, well, what about the Democrats? Yeah, they suck too. So this is not to say the Democrats are pure, but when it comes to a factual investigation into what happened that day, a lot of the GOP politicians and supporters of their party or supporters of Donald Trump are saying that this is a flawed investigation because they already know the conclusion. They know they want to blame Donald Trump. Therefore, it's a botched investigation. They have forgotten that Mitch McConnell was the one who pointed the finger at Donald Trump that day.
Wait, let me draw an analogy to this because it's like that doesn't make any fucking sense. It's a botched or flawed investigation because we know who done it.
That's what their excuse is.
Bitch,
the reason
we know OJ done it. we still had to have a trial.
Yes, that's the thing. Regardless of whether you know who done it, how they did it, why they did it, you still have to have a due process, an investigation, and the litigation and the trial and everything.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm so glad you said that because let's just say for argument's sake that if it were wrong to start from a point of for the Democrats to start from a point of trying to blame Donald Trump because they're accused of always wanting to blame Trump for everything. Let's not forget that the leader of the Republican Party himself said Trump is to blame for this. So he was the one who drew that conclusion before anybody else did. So you can't use that as an excuse for the Republicans to back out and saying it's a flawed investigation. Their leader was the one who drew that conclusion from the get-go.
And for the first time in like history, I agreed with the guy. I was like, yo, let's litigate it. Let's bring the law and you know, turn it up. Wow.
The other thing is, a lot of people are saying, oh, they're just doing this because it makes the Republicans look bad. Okay. First of all, you can't claim partisanship is the reason that you don't want to participate in this, but then say that it makes your own side look bad, because saying the word side means you're choosing your own conclusion. You're choosing partisanship. Exactly. So you can't say it's my side versus your side. That is partisanship. So that argument goes out the window too. But also, if you're in a factual investigation into what happened that day and it makes your side look bad, then that means that your side
is bad.
It made errors that warrant such an investigation. And I'll give you an example. So you can't say that somebody's going to look bad if the merit of that investigation is untrue. And this happened to me just yesterday. Somebody came at me in a comment section on a YouTube video because I had given feedback to a YouTuber that I did not like their content. Mm-hmm. And somebody got triggered. And so they went and saw that I had a YouTube channel and said, oh, and this is what they said to me. Oh, you've got a YouTube channel and you've only got 337 subscribers. So that's pathetic. It's no wonder that your channel is going nowhere. So if I were trying to become a full-time YouTuber, sure, that would make me look bad. So I responded to them and I'm like, really? I'm not trying to be a full-time YouTuber. So the merit of your accusation towards me is completely bunk.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be a YouTuber, so I don't look bad. What's your point? So the same thing with this investigation. If the merit of the investigation is flawed, then it doesn't make anybody look bad. It just makes the person investigating look bad. Yeah. There is merit to these accusations of people who participated in January 6th. So that's why they don't, if they look bad, it's because they participated.
I'm really annoyed with the fact that he was the one that was just like, if you guys want to get to the bottom of this, let's form a commission, let's fucking litigate it, you know, by the letter of the law. Mm-hmm. And then when it was time to do such a thing, he was just like, oh, I don't want to.
Oh, we can't do this. This is bad for America.
This is bad for America. This is what, shut the fuck up. You know, and so you quoted Mitch McConnell talking about this commission and how it should be run and whatever. And then when it came down to it, he was against it. He voted against it.
He actually voted against it.
Right. But our adversaries across the pond, the Russians, at the time when we were looking into investigating this, their official statement from the Kremlin was that they're only doing the Democrats are only doing this as a way to make sure that Trump cannot hold political office ever again.
Which they
kind of painted it as like it's a witch hunt.
Oh.
It's you know, oh, you're just trying to stop him from being president after the next 4 years. And it's like, well, if he did some fucked up shit, well, we don't want him as president again. If he was the one that started this, that was the catalyst for all of this. Mm-hmm. Not even the catalyst, just the fucking match and gasoline.
He was everything.
Yeah. Then why would we want this person? But they were painting it in the international community as the Democrats are just trying to make sure that he's finished forever. Bruh, in my opinion, and this is my personal opinion, he should have never been president in the first fucking place. So what's the problem? He was unfit. Obviously, he was unfit if he incited a riot where 5 to however many people died trying to subvert our Constitution. Not that our Constitution is perfect, but the fact that we all know what the Constitution is and we understand it, and we understand how it works, and it's workable.
Yes.
And he tried to fuck that.
Yes.
Well, then fuck him.
Yes. Exactly. I wouldn't want him in office just because of his own actions. When he got elected, a lot of us were saying, oh, this is going to be bad. And people were like, you just don't like him. You have no idea. Okay, well, we went through 4 years and he was even worse than we thought.
And there was never an insurrection on the Capitol building while Congress was in session until this person was president.
There had
in the
never
history. Like, we can go through 44 presidents. We can go through all the. We can go through
Yes.
Andrew Jackson. We can go through George Washington, Abraham
Yes.
Lincoln. There was nothing of this scale.
Not even during the Civil War did the Confederate flag go into the Capitol building, but it happened under Trump.
As you know what? As soon as you said Confederate flag, I'm gonna post that picture of that fucktard with the fucking Confederate flag in our building. The treasonous fucking ass flag.
Yes.
Wow, bro.
Yes.
Dude. As a person who wasn't born an American and like studied the history of, you know, the wars that got us to where we are and sacrifices and the blood, sweat, and tears or whatever, to see the Confederate flag parading around inside our Capitol building where the two chambers of Congress meet was just mind-blowing. It was just like,
it was a sad day.
Did we go back to 1770, 77? I don't like. What are we doing?
Well, that was 1860.
And then remember the fucking guy with the fucking Auschwitz?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just like, I was like, what are you? How is this in this building? This building is against all of that.
Yes. So here's the question: is what is the GOP saying now about the events of that day? It's very different. Like you and I remember this because we watched it on television, and we don't abide by what the mainstream media tells us to believe about that. We believe our own eyes. We saw it happen, and we know who was participating that day. We know what we saw, and what is the GOP trying to say now that is not aligning with the truth?
We all saw the video of what happened. I really don't need to reiterate. Y'all saw people scaling the walls. You saw the news out there. You saw the woman from California get shot a couple of times and died. You saw an officer got beaten to death. You saw another officer that was steering people away from the chamber and took them upstairs because they didn't have like the layout. You saw people communicating in terms of where we should be or what window we should break or where we should go or whatever.
We did see people breaking windows.
Right. You saw people in the halls with Confederate flags. You saw them with the Auschwitz.
Auschwitz.
Yes. Hoodie and things. So that's what really happened. You saw all of those things.
Destroying property and then stealing property.
Yeah. The one guy that found Nancy Pelosi's office and he had his feet up and he stole a letter. Stole property. The shaman dude with the horns and whatnot. He thought he was in the Senate chamber, but he was actually in the House.
In the House chamber, yep.
And and so we all saw this. So there's no need for me to figure out what happened.
Yeah.
We saw it live. It was like watching a baseball game. We saw it live. But then after that, like clockwork, like we expected, the spin. Like one GOP senator was just like, "Oh, those are tourists." God, that hurt my head so bad. I was like, "Motherfucker, tourists." And then Donald Trump said it was all peaceful. That was his words. They were peaceful people. They were protesting because they were disgruntled and they were upset with whatever. And it's like, peaceful. They beat an officer to death with a fucking fire extinguisher.
Yes, and I believe it was Sergeant Gunnell during his testimony at the commission, the first day of the commission, he said that he was asked, Donald Trump called this hugs and kisses that day. And Sergeant Gunnell said, if those were hugs and kisses, I'm still recovering from them, and maybe we should go to Donald Trump's house and do the same to him. I'm
for it. I completely agree with that guy.
It just was insane to him, having been there.
Yeah.
It's diminishing and dehumanizing
to the people who
were there. And this happens a lot with people who suffer traumatic experiences. There's always some asshole that's got to come in and say, "Oh, it wasn't that bad.
It wasn't that bad.
You weren't there. You did not experience this. How fucking dare you say that it was like hugs and kisses?" That in itself,
because he left. He was in a tent, like him and his son and them, and they were cheering. You remember one? He had boxing gloves on.
I did not see that.
It was either him or his son. Somebody had boxing gloves on, like, yeah, get him. And I'm like, what the fuck?
I don't think
People
that happened.
dying.
I think that was before the rally. They were getting pumped up for the rally.
They were getting pumped up.
Yeah, but when after the rally was over, Trump got in his limousine and he went to the White House. He went the opposite direction.
He left all the people that he incited, because I remember him saying that we're going to march down Pennsylvania Avenue. We're going to go to the Capitol.
Be there with you.
I'm going to be there with you. And then he dipped off. There's a stark difference in what these officers, was there 4 or 5?
That testified?
Yeah.
There were 4.
There were 4 of them that were testifying what they actually saw and felt and heard, and saw their colleague beaten to death. And like one guy was beaten to death with a fire extinguisher. There was another guy that was beaten with a flagpole. And it was just like, bro, like, I don't know what part of tourist and orderly and peaceful do you think happened on that day on the camera footage that we have?
Right.
You know,
it's insane to even suggest that, but there are people who believe him, because those people that believe every word he says actually believe that they were peaceful protests.
Oh, there ain't nothing. There was not even before they stormed the Capitol, right? When Giuliani was up there, you know, saying what we got to do. When that other congressman was like, and that guy was like the major inciter. I can't remember his name. Can't remember. I can't remember his name. But he was up there, and he was just like, you know, we have to fight, and he's like, he's using insightful words to get people to march down or whatever. And then you remember the guy with the zip ties?
Oh yes.
Like
yes.
Who the fuck? Like, look, I needed zip ties for this fucking renovation, and we didn't have any. And I had to go to Home Depot to buy a gang of zip ties, and I bought like maybe 20. Maybe 15, 20, and it cost me like $7 some shit. This motherfucker had a whole like stack. Like, I'm sure that cost him like $50.
Now,
you don't show up to the Capitol with zip ties unless you try to zip tie somebody.
Now, hang on a second though. His defense was that he found them. He just found them and picked them up and carried them around.
What judge? What serious judge who went through fucking law school and the bar and, you know, tenure as an attorney? What judge is gonna believe that? Like, yeah, bro, you found that.
Yeah, because there's zip ties just laying around on the house floor.
Bro, they had 50 zip ties. That's a lot.
That's a lot.
A lot.
Yes, so they definitely have changed the narrative, and it's shifted so many times throughout the past 6 months. First, it was President Trump gave a speech that day on television that said, "We love you." So he was speaking to the people who had broken into the chambers. He said, "We love you." Then after the resounding and overwhelming response from the public was, "This is fucked up." Then he's like, "Oh, well, it wasn't. No, it must have been Antifa. It must have been Black Lives Matter." Well, why'd you say you love them if you thought that these weren't your people? You loved what they did in your name, so you were condoning that behavior. All right. Then it was Black Lives Matter.
All right, hold on. Let me, and I know we've all seen the memes and we've all seen the Facebook stories and whatever, but I'm just going to reiterate for all the people who are deaf, dumb, blind, mute, very simply, and I want you to listen to me carefully, people of podcast world and Instagram and Facebook. Under no circumstances would Black Lives Matter and Antifa and your mama, your papa, and your cousin too riot and storm the Capitol to overturn an election that you just won.
True. That's true.
I don't understand how this became a talking point. I don't understand how this became a thing. It's like you voted for Joe Biden not because Joe Biden is great, because Joe Biden is a piece of shit. I can tell you that. I know that for a fact because of his response to the Israeli-Palestinian situation, his response to the Cuban situation, him increasing sanctions on Cuba. Like I can give you a list of 25 things why Joe Biden is a piece of shit.
Yeah.
But the other guy was a worse piece of shit, and everybody voted him out. And I can't believe that Fox News and AON and whatever the Parler and whatever was happening at the time thought that it was a good talking point to say Antifa and BLM dressed up as white people in whiteface. Because if you look at the pictures, ain't no black people out there. Ain't no Hispanics out there. Ain't no fucking Native Americans.
Right.
Nobody was out there except people from the mountains of Caucasus. It's the truth. I don't know what to tell you. And but that they sought to overturn an election that they just won. That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my. That's the dumbest talking point.
We're not talking about people who have critical thinking skills. It's every time I talk to somebody about the facts and the evidence and just using critical thinking skills, it becomes a circular argument over and over again. It's like, well, it was this, and then it was this, and then it was this, and it was like chasing your tail trying to talk to these people.
So here's the thing. Why I know that it was bullshit and nonsense and just a talking point, for the few days of hearing that we've had from the officers and other people who testified or whatever, not one person has brought up Antifa or BLM. No. Because every single person knows that that's a bullshit argument.
Yes. And that's why
it's always been a bullshit argument.
That's why this commission is necessary, because there's so much spin happening in the media, amongst conservative media, especially, that is changing the actual events of the day to make Donald Trump look less culpable. And they're trying to come up with it's almost like it's not almost like it is as if they are doing exactly what they're accusing other people of doing, in which they are trying to, they start with a conclusion and then they're trying to build the evidence around that conclusion. Their conclusion is Donald Trump's innocent, stop blaming him for shit. So in order to do that, they have to blame somebody else, because how can you make the case that he's innocent if every single person who stormed the Capitol that day was supporting him in his name, waving his flags, saying that he sent them. Flags. Yes, saying that he sent them.
I can't wait to put the picture up of all the fucking Trump flags.
We will put pictures of that day
right now.
So that's why this commission is necessary.
Yeah.
That's why it is happening, is because the House Select Committee wants to get to the facts of what happened that day from the perspective of the police officers, some of the police officers who were there defending that territory. So, but that's why this commission is happening, is because we need to actually get people who were there that day to explain what they saw from their own perspective, and to debunk a lot of these talking points from media sources. Again, these are people in the media. These are not experts. These are not psychologists. These are not people who are experts in cultism and how this happens. These are not people who are experts in policing or National Guard. These are talking heads on television who are actually trying to persuade people to believe what happened that day. Not their own eyes, but some different version of what happened that day.
So, you know what I want to point out as the talking point that the GOP has used with the whole Antifa and BLM and bullshit or whatever. Let me just rest on the whole BLM issue for the crux of the matter.
Okay.
Prior to the January 6th issue, when we had the protests all over the country for George Floyd and, you know, his murder at the hands of a police officer, there were protests in D.C. And when there were protests in D.C., the National Guard was present. And there are many pictures you can see of them in various files and ranks on top of the Capitol steps and buildings.
I remember those pictures.
To the tune of hundreds of them, where if you thought for a fraction of a second that you were going to storm that building, you're going to pick up a fucking 50 caliber fucking bullet to the neck. You ain't going nowhere near this building. Soldiers were from the top step to all the way down to the street.
Yes.
You can riot all you want. You can protest all you want. You can picket. You can have your signs. You can sing songs, whatever. But this motherfucking building, you're not getting into it.
Yes.
Because we got people.
Yes.
We got where I'm from, we were like, we got backative. We got support.
Yeah.
You won't have this kind of firepower.
Yes.
However, when January 6th happened, everyone noted immediately that this kind of firepower, this kind of resistance, this kind of deterrence was not present.
Yes.
And while I'm watching the hearing on TV and reading the news or whatever, very rarely does anyone ask the question of, why weren't y'all as prepared for the January 6th insurrection that was all over Twitter, all over Facebook, all over Parler, all over Instagram, all over whatever, Pinterest. But y'all were ready for BLM, but you weren't ready for the people who were ready to hang Mike Pence. Mm-hmm. Why is that?
Right.
So I don't know if you have any information on that, but I got a lot of information on it.
Information on why there was so much more of a presence. Not
even so much more of a presence, but why there was zero presence.
Zero presence. Yeah, and I'm sorry, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
So much more presence during the BLM protests.
Right.
Tell me about it.
Okay. So, along with the inquiry that's been happening with this hearing, a lot of questions have been asked of the officers that were there, of senior officials that were there. And people were talking about, well, why wasn't the National Guard called? Why wasn't the National Guard put in place to stop this? Why wasn't the National Guard a deterrent? And from the memo, the official memo from the National Guard that was released during this hearing was that they were told specifically by the person who could command them in the Washington, D.C. area to not be equipped, not be ready, not be standing at the ready or at arms for this. And a lot of it, I was complaining to Beth earlier, that a lot of the reports and the stuff in the hearing is in passive voice, as in the bomb blew up, or the plane crashed at 12:30, or the ship sank at 4:15 p.m. And passive voice does that. I don't know if a lot of people who like really gotten into their first language, passive voice, what passive voice does is it absolves blame. What it does is it tells you what happened, but it doesn't tell you who made it happen. So passive voice, and I'm sorry I'm dumbing this down for people who are highly intelligent. I apologize to you. But we live among a lot of people who disparage intelligence. But passive voice does something like this. The apple hit John on the head at 4:15 p.m. and he was hurt and went to the hospital. In that whole sentence, in all the information that was gathered from that, it doesn't tell you who threw the apple, who dropped the apple, who, if it was an accident. It doesn't tell you anything. All it tells you is what happened to John. And that's what I'm noticing that's being happened in this inquiry, in this commission, with the questions that are being asked. It is, what happened? Well, this police officer was beaten to death, and this civilian was shot, and this person was assaulted, and this person led whatever. And it was like, and the question that needs to be asked is, who did that? Mm-hmm. Who incited that? Who asked for that? Who propelled? Who made it happen? No one's asking that question. But the interesting thing is that the answer to all of those who questions is literally in documented reports. The person in charge of deploying the National Guard in Washington, D.C., the person in charge of having the National Guard at the ready with weapons and tools to disperse and repel a riot, All of that is documented in the report that is given to Congress. And that person is the current sitting president of the United States of America.
Now, for the people who need a reminder, the current sitting president on January 6th was Donald Trump.
You can Google this. Matter of fact, you can Wikipedia this. You can literally ask yourself, who is in charge of the National Guard of Washington, D.C.? Not Illinois, not Pennsylvania, not Oklahoma, not Nevada. Washington, D.C. Who is in charge of ordering, mobilizing, weaponizing, equipping the National Guard? It is literally the president.
And let me take your point a step further. This is what happens when passive voice is used. People start to fill in the blanks on their own. A very, very prominent talking point amongst conservative or Trump circles, Trump supporting circles, is that Nancy Pelosi is the one who did not deploy the National Guard. Because
she don't have that power.
I know she doesn't, but when people do not hear the actual statement to say Donald Trump was responsible for deploying the National Guard that day, if the statement is just the National Guard wasn't deployed,
yeah,
people are going to fill in the blanks as to who is responsible. Now, the Speaker of the House is responsible for security on the premises. And that's where people are starting to fill in that blank and say it's Nancy Pelosi's fault because the Speaker of the House is in charge of the premises. However, she is not able to call in the National Guard.
The building itself.
The building itself.
That's Capitol Police.
Yes.
That's not National Guard.
Yes, exactly. So that's why people are making this mistake of blaming her because of the passive voice being used.
Yeah.
It is not explicitly stated that only the president can deploy the National Guard
for Washington, D.C.
For Washington, D.C.
The president can't deploy the National Guard for Ohio.
No.
That's the governor's job.
Exactly. But because Washington, D.C. is a district, it does not have its own governor.
Exactly.
It does not have its own. Yes, it's because of that the president is the only one who can do that. And so passive voice has not led to only confusion. It's led to people filling in the wrong person's name as to who's to blame for this.
So here's the thing, not only the problem with the passive voice, but the actual reality of what happened a day or two prior. On January 4th or 5th, the Secretary of Defense and the head of the Secretary of the DOJ and the National Guard met with Donald Trump, the president at the time, and said, okay, you're planning this rally, you're planning this thing. We do have intelligence that says that these people can be violent. It can turn riotous. It can get out of control. We need to put some steps and some measures in place to protect not only property, but civilians and casualties and the senators, etc., congresspeople in the House. And the person who is in charge of the National Guard, who can deploy the National Guard in Washington, D.C., told those people, and it is recorded, it's literally there on a document, told them, in essence, to stand down.
Mm-hmm.
Don't, not only to stand down, but not only to stand down, but not be armed.
Right.
And so the DOJ and like every senator, every congressperson has this document in front of them that they can read. Like it's stamped with the DOJ stamp and letterhead that says, we were told on January 4th or 5th, I can't remember which day, so please don't call me, that the National Guard's armed response isn't necessary. This is just a rally. We're just going to talk. We're just going to motivate people. We're just going to, have a back and forth, just whatever. And there was a little bit of pushback from the people who are leaders who have experience with this. The DOJ, the National Guard, and they were just like, well, we kind of should get these people ready. We kind of should have arms or whatever. And the person who was in charge of that said, no, you don't need this at all. You don't. Mm-hmm. So that is the difference in the discrepancy between the BLM protests over the summer and the January 6th insurrection, where you had all these police or military or armed presence on the steps of the Capitol building saying, you're not going to come in here, you're not going to fuck up shit, you're not going to kill anybody, You're not going to hang anybody. Nobody's going to get shot or whatever because we're here already. Versus what is happening on January 6th, where it's like, we're not even here. And even if we were here physically, we weren't allowed to be armed.
Mm-hmm.
The truth is, if you read that document, and I'll probably post it here, it says that even if they were there, they weren't supposed to be armed. So they would have to return to the armory and get everyone armed and then come back. By the time that happened, Mike Pence would be hung and like a body at that point. So they weren't allowed to be there in their numbers. They weren't allowed to take up station. And even if they weren't allowed to be armed.
Yes.
There was the Capitol had no defense. The only defense the Capitol had was the Capitol Police. And one of those Capitol Police died because of these tourists that were looking for the gift shop, couldn't find the gift shop. This officer was in their way, and they beat him to fucking death so they could buy some fucking Capitol pins and
magnets
and t-shirts and magnets and
the little
hoodies. And
yes, exactly.
That's
and I do want to address the same talking point that keeps coming back at me anytime I mention how awful it was what happened on January 6th. It's what about the Black Lives Matter riots the prior summer? I am so sick of people bringing up some other thing that happened as a means to absolve them from feeling anything about this other thing that we're talking about. All I'm asking is for you to feel a certain way, to tell me what you really think about January 6th. Don't take me back to some other time when you felt something was also wrong. One wrong thing that happened, let's say, okay, we do have to say very explicitly, there's a difference between rioting and protesting.
Yeah.
So if you take the worst of what happened at the Black Lives Matter protests, when people actually did start to destroy property, that is wrong. It's wrong to destroy property, but that does not in any way, shape, or form absolve people from taking a stance on what happened on January 6th.
It doesn't.
I am so sick of people. What about this? And what about that? I don't give two shits about what happened the summer before. That's a separate issue. We should still address it. But my question is about January 6th. Stop changing the subject.
When we get to whataboutism, the conversation is over.
The argument is dead because it completely distracts from the point of, let me just say, okay, I'm going to say it this way. You cannot compare Black Lives Matter protests to January 6th. You cannot compare the two.
Because literally no Capitol Police died.
Capitol Police didn't die. And the people that destroyed property, some of them in the Black Lives Matter protests, some of them were actually instigators who were trying to come in from outside
to mar the movement,
right?
What was happening. Okay.
And so a lot of these people who are trying to say that January 6th was Black Lives Matter or Antifa, they only draw that correlation because of the destruction of property. Well, more than just destruction of property happened that day. People died, and we did not have people coming into the Black Lives Matter protests with gallows trying to hang people. These are two different instances, two completely different. I can't even get the words out. I'm so frustrated with people who just have no critical thinking skills.
Yeah.
If I'm asking you specifically, what do you think should happen on with what happened on January 6th? What do you think should happen to the people who destroyed property, who broke in, who did this and who did that? Well, what about Black Lives Matter? No, we're not talking about them. It's because they don't want to feel. They don't want to feel what happened that day. They're not capable of going there. And that's kind of the point, isn't it? It was so fucking horrible that there are people who would just say, don't even talk to me about it. I can't even think about it. Can't even feel.
So what about, and I'm going to do the same thing that you hate. What about the officers, I think there were 4 of them who had statements in this commission,
Yes.
in this hearing.
Yes.
And how does it compare to the people who are propagating the bullshit, like the Tucker Carlsons and the fucking, what's her name again? The chick from, I can't remember her name. She's the one that said shut up and dribble.
Oh, Laura Ingraham.
Right. Those people. Like, what is the discrepancy between what these officers are testifying under oath, under penalty of perjury before Congress, and what the spin is on AON and Fox News and whatever?
Okay, there's a very stark difference between how these things are portrayed. And I take major issue with this. So I'm preemptively apologizing to our audience if I get really heated in this. Because, first of all, for the past several years, anytime the discussion has turned towards police officers, police violence, police brutality, I have taken the stance of we need to have therapy for cops who are consistently put into stressful and traumatic situations because they probably have PTSD. Okay. And I got met with some serious pushback, people who were so upset with me even suggesting that police officers have PTSD. Oh, you can't say that they're weak. They're strong people. I am not saying they're weak. PTSD does not mean you are weak. Therapy does not mean you are weak. But there were some people who got so mad at me and actually ended their friendships with me because I were to suggest.
Because you weren't a bootlicker?
Yes, because I suggested that if you are in, it's called compassion fatigue. It is an actual diagnosable condition that my therapist has told me about. That when people who are in high stress situations where they're consistently, think about 911 operators, police officers, firefighters, nurses and doctors, when they're in a position of trauma after trauma after trauma after trauma, that they don't really have time to decompress. They can get to a point where they start to despise people needing their help. And I think that this is what's happening with police brutality in this country, is that they're just going from trauma to trauma to trauma to trauma, not decompressing. And therefore they do sometimes get to the point where they start to resent the public, the civilians that they're supposed to protect.
Because it's just piling on.
It's piling on.
They don't get any downtime.
They don't get any downtime. So I have advocated for the last several years that we need proper training and therapy for police officers to decompress them after they have highly stressful situations, because they most likely have PTSD. And they are not in the right state of mind to be put in stressful situations again, because you never know when PTSD is going to come up and resurface. I just had an episode just within the last couple of weeks. I had to leave work, and a friend of mine at work noticed. She's like, "You need to leave. You're shaking. You need to leave." Oh, wow. Because you don't know when the PTSD is going to resurface and what's going to re-trigger it. So anyways, I had to say that. So Sergeant Ganell was the first to testify, and he had fought in Iraq before, and he said that what he saw on January 6th was worse than anything he had seen in Iraq.
It had to be terrifying, you being like right here and looking at thousands of people coming at you with flags and fucking zip ties and like, what? And so here's the thing. I know it's traumatic because, like, if you were in Iraq and you're fucking, you got your fatigues, you got your troop or your battalion with you, whatever, and then the opposition is coming towards you, and you're just like, okay, either we kill them or they kill us. It's one or the other. Here we are. Yes. But when you're looking out at the crowd, it's like, these are Americans.
These are citizens.
Just like us.
Yes.
Do we kill them, or do they kill us? Now it's cognitive dissonance.
Yes. And the second officer to testify, Officer Fanone, did address that. He said that he had his firearm. Some of the armed mob, he said they were armed. Mm-hmm. Some of them were determined to get inside. They were determined to kill him with his own gun. And they actually said those words, kill him with his own gun. Wow. He said he had thought about taking out his weapon, but he knew that there were armed people there. And if he took out his weapon and shot one of them, that would be the justification that the crowd would need to kill him. He was trying to plead with them. And what ended up working was Officer Fanone said, I have kids. And that's when they finally stopped trying to kill him, because he was pleading to the humanity in them. And that's a smart move on his part.
The pro-life humanity.
The pro-life humanity. But that's what works. So, but Sergeant Gannell, Officer Fanone, they had both mentioned that they had been diagnosed with PTSD. Officer Hodges, he was the next to testify. He called these people terrorists. That was a very strategic word on his part that he used, because the definition of a domestic terrorist is somebody who's using a political motive in order to...
Is that the same guy who read the definition?
Yes, he read the definition.
I watched that and I was just like, and he said the word, he's like, I came prepared.
Yes.
With the definition.
He used the word terrorist, but he was saying those people were, they planted a bomb. They started trying to attack him. They tried to convert us to their cult, he said. And then last to testify was Officer Dunn. He said that he's also been, he's been diagnosed with PTSD. And he spoke directly to the members of Congress and also to the public and to his fellow officers by saying that there are peer support programs. There is the Employee Assistance Program that gives the counseling sessions, but there's also private insurance that you could lean on in private counseling sessions. And he asked the House to look at the current needs of those officers who have been diagnosed with PTSD and reassess whether their current, whatever they get through their employment is enough to address how to handle therapy for officers who are in traumatic situations, which is basically every day for an officer. So,
and it shouldn't be every day for a Capitol Police officer.
It shouldn't be that.
Like, it should be a once a century thing, and it happened on that day for them.
It shouldn't be every day for any officer, let alone Capitol Police. But any officer should not be in that kind of situation day after day. But they are, unfortunately. So here's my point. The reason I'm going through all of that is because I have been through trauma before. I have PTSD. I was re-triggered just within the last 2 weeks. So I know that what they're saying is true. And when it comes to Tucker Carlson, Sean Hannity, Dinesh D'Souza, these are three people who have been in the media explicitly making fun of these men for showing emotion. Making
calling
fun
them
of
all
these
kinds
men,
of names, weak and like
calling them everything, which is not just disgusting on its face, but it is so dehumanizing and it's so toxically masculine to say that a man who sheds tears is weak. A man who shows that he is.
Have you ever been defending the capital of a fucking country and watching your colleague being beat to death? Like, if a dude is crying because of that, man, like, shut the fuck up. I'm not time.
It is awful. It is awful to see
your colleague died. That's a dude that you know. You had lunch with that dude.
And it's not just that their colleague died. That's not the only reason they're shedding tears. They were talking about how they thought they'd never see their family again. They were talking about how these people, just like you said, these people who were staring at them and wanting to kill them were fellow Americans, citizens of this country.
We all got to go home and eat dinner.
Yes. And it was just, so the conservative media is looking at these situations and just being completely, there are no words. I'm really struggling to find the words to say how they are, but they're really, when they're faced with humanity, they're actually taking the route of saying that shit don't matter. They're fucking weak. Look at those crybabies. Actually, Dinesh D'Souza says, he tweeted this out. I'm still waiting for surveillance or body cam video showing a MAGA crowd shouting racist taunts, including the N-word, at the Capitol Police officer on January 6th.
I remember the guy, the black officer.
Yes, Officer Dunn.
Recounting, what he heard.
Yes.
The use of the N-word.
They're calling him a liar. They're calling him a liar because they can't fathom that any of their own people would ever use that word. So rather than say, ooh, maybe we should look at this situation, maybe we should have a discussion about how the N-word's not appropriate. No. They say he's lying. We'd never say that. Now that's one person. Greg Kelly, who is on Newsmax, he was live tweeting during these hearings, and he said some of the most vile and disgusting shit that is so beneath a human being, let alone beneath a person who is on television. He was saying that these officers who were crying and who were testifying were trying to get Oscars, and this was an Oscar performance, that there's no way that they could be being honest about how they feel. This is, again, this notion that men can't show any kind of emotion except for just being stoic. Men are stoic.
Men are either happy or angry, and that's it.
That's the only thing they're allowed to be.
Two choices.
And it's so dehumanizing, because when I was close to tears watching these men testify, just because I knew that it took a lot for them to rehash almost dying.
Yeah.
Anybody in that situation would be emotional.
Because it's thousands of people coming towards you. It's not like 3 people and be like, I'll shoot 3 of them. Whatever.
Yeah.
It's just like, I don't have enough bullets for all of you.
Yes.
Please stop coming in here.
And one of them actually saying, I have the right to defend myself, but if I pull out my weapon, I am going to die because they will shoot me back.
Yeah.
And he just basically had to say, okay, I guess I might die, but I'm not going to be able to defend myself with my weapon. I'm just going to have to defend myself by pleading to their emotions and saying I have kids. And that actually worked. But he didn't think he was going to survive. None of these officers thought they were going to survive.
That's crazy.
So the conservative media, they absolutely, there are no words to describe how disgusting they are, that they're actually saying that these men who are crying can't possibly be telling the truth because men don't cry.
And that's Tucker Carlson. Who else?
Sean Hannity, Greg Kelly, and Dinesh the fuckface D'Souza.
I haven't heard anything from that stupid bitch.
Laura Ingraham?
No, not Laura Ingraham, but her too. But the fucking judge, Pirro or whatever her name
Judge
is.
Perino or whatever the hell her name is. I just have to say that there are some Republican senators and House members that have come out and said, I didn't feel threatened. Well, it's because you knew they weren't coming for you.
Because they were on your team.
Yeah.
You would have been like, yo, I'm fucking Rep Bobart. I'm fucking Marjorie Taylor. The guys you want are that way. So
that tells you everything you need to know. They didn't feel threatened because they knew that those people weren't coming for them.
We don't need to elaborate on that. So on that note, like I said, since we're way over time, usually we try to keep this on there an hour, but this is a serious fucking topic. Beth, can you tell these people how to reach us? And before she does, I'm going to let you know, we're going to continue this conversation on our Patreon, which I will tell you about after she tells you about how to get to us.
All right. So we are on Twitch at Mixed Politics. On YouTube, if you search Mixed Politics as 2 words, you'll see us there. Facebook and Instagram, mixed.politics. Twitter at mixedpolitics1. Or you can send us an email at mixedpoliticspod@gmail.com.
Right. And if you want to actually get participation trophies for being a part of this show, you can go to patreon.com, patreon.com/mixedpolitics, and subscribe to us. Donate to be a part of our show. Like I said, we do kickback. It's not a situation where you're just giving to us just blindly, depending on the tier that you choose. But there's kickbacks, and we are devoted to doing that. So we really appreciate you. And we thank you so much for being a part of this show. We would love to have you a part of this show. There's a whole bar behind us now. So come sit, come get some drinks with us, come hang out and kick it, and we'll make a show together.
And most importantly, if you want to hear the rest of what we have to say tonight, that's where you're going to see it on Patreon.
There's going to be more of that, because I'm not done. We do have a lot of other things to talk about. But while we're here and we're done, we're going to thank all of you for being here.
Yes. To our analysts, pundits, and experts. Now we can cheers in person. Yeah. We don't have to do that anymore.
Oh, we don't?
No, because we're...